Good morning. Good morning, and welcome back to the 48 Laws of Power discussion series. I'm your host, Darth Hideous, who almost wasn't your host at all. Because Darth Hideous was almost the overslept. Good morning, everybody. I see Firsty and Kitty Ninja in the Rumble chat. Let's see who else we got here this morning. I see Iris and Shalomania and Cat Ninja in the YouTube chat as well. Good morning, everybody. Yeah. So I just woke up 5 minutes ago, and I don't have anything up. Like, I overslept about over an hour longer than I meant to this morning. So I literally just got my first cup of coffee in my hand here. It might be a slow start. But bear with me. Law 41 today. Happy Friday. Happy Friday, everybody. Happy Friday. How is everybody doing? Go ahead. Stall for me, please. Yes, that's coffee. You can hear that? Still got to work on my Steven Crowder sip, but I'd like to think. Oh, wake and bake. Yeah, no kidding. More like wake and get the fuck to work. I. Oh, look. Okay. Get your head together. Mm, 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 mm. Get your head together, Mr. Hideous. Yeah. What law are we on, guys? Does anybody remember? Oh, yeah. Never mind. We're on Law 41 this morning. But since it's a Friday, and it's a happy freaking Friday, and Darth is almost super late to the show. I mean, considering I woke up at 11:55, I'm I'm gonna say being 2 minutes late probably not the worst thing I could have done. But I haven't even had my morning cigarette, haven't had my morning coffee, definitely haven't had my morning bong rips. Yeah, I was gonna say, I seriously had a hell of a time getting to sleep last night, as one does on occasion, staying up too late. And I thought, well, I mean, like, it wasn't that late when I woke up. So, shout out to the 3 on YouTube watching, the 8 that have joined us this morning here on Rumble, and the one person who's watching on Zitter. You know who you are, my Zitter observer. Hmm. Okay, I'm officially in position now. So is everybody ready for the final stretch of the 48 laws? I was looking back the other day. You guys know that it was March 2023, about the middle of March 2023, when we first started this whole series. And now it is February 2024, and we are on pace to finish right about 11 months in. So we averaged a law a week the unconventional way, which is a fancy way to say you could have had this done a long time ago if your dumbass had not gone ahead and taken like half a year off. And why is this important, you wonder? I'll tell you. Because Law 41. Law 41 is. Drum roll, please. I can't do a drum roll. I'm always been a bad at beatboxing kind of guy. Boom. Avoid stepping into a great man's shoes. And why would we want to avoid such a thing? Let me tell you, we would avoid such a thing because They may be too big. Shoes may be too big to fill. Oh, excuse me, y'all. Uh, oh boy. I'm stalling again. Stalling again. Okay. That ought to do it. Boop. Uh, nah. Uh, oh. Never step into a great man's shoes because they might be Crocs. They might be or vegan loafers. They might be boots. They might be like heavy work boots. Because, great men who do great things wear good boots. Regardless, everybody's heard the phrase like walk a mile in my shoes, and everybody's heard the phrase no doubt shoes too big to fill. And you gotta be aware of shoes that have too big to fill. It's a very dangerous situation, the too big to fill. It's like fentanyl, only maybe more dangerous. Giant oversized clogs. Who would wear such a thing? Okay. So live on the Zitters. I could bring this up. We are live on the Rumbo. And I don't have YouTube up, but seeing the people in the StreamYard just shows me that YouTube has to be aware of what's going on. Okay, okay. Avoid stepping into a great man's shoes. It says, judgment. What happens first always appears better and more original than what comes after. If you succeed a great man or have a famous parent, I do hope we get to talk about Marcus Aurelius' son Constantine, who took over the Roman Empire after Marcus Aurelius passed. But anyway, if you succeed a great man or have a famous parent, you will have to accomplish double their achievements to outshine them. Let's take a look at the last two guys to run the United States of America. The current gentleman, Joe Biden, and the guy right before him, the Orange Man. Now, in order to outshine the legacy of probably the best president we've ever had in this country, at least in our lifetimes, maybe not George Washington, but close, Mr. Joe Biden has had to do a lot to outshine his legacy. Oh, it's working. Oh boy, is it fucking working. Although it's being outshined with infamy, but I mean, Psh, you're not supposed to notice that. Anywho, do not get lost in their shadow. Or stuck in a past not of your own making. Establish your own name and identity by changing course, which that's what's happening. Slay the overbearing father, disparage his legacy, and gain power by shining in your own way. Okay, like whoever read this book to whoever's running things as like a bedtime story, you should have explained it better. No, 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 let's not destroy everything just because we can. That wouldn't be the way to do it. Oh wait. Oh, never mind. I'm on the wrong one. That explains why that's broken. Okay, that should be better now. Ugh. I think I'm all the way caught up. Oh my, I almost think I should have sent out an invitation to a guest. Because right here, it says the excellence of being first. I'm not actually going to read the excellence of being first. Oh, I am actually going to read the excellence of being first. Holy crap. First one shot. Would you please stand up and take a bow for the class? Since your name is first. And this is the excellence of being first. This is clearly written about you, sir, is it not? Do you deny it? The excellence of being first one shot. Many would have shone like the very phoenix in their occupations if others had not preceded them. Being first is a great advantage. With eminence, twice as good. Deal the first hand, and you will win the upper ground, the high ground, if you will. Those who go first win fame by right of birth, and those who follow are like second sons, contenting themselves with meager portions. Solomon opted wisely for pacifism, yielding warlike things to his father. By changing course, he found it easier to become a hero. And our great Philip II governed the entire world from a throne of his prudence, astonishing the ages. If his unconquered father was a model of energy, Philip was a paradigm of prudence. This sort of novelty has helped the well advised win a place in the role of the great. Without leaving their own art, the ingenious leave the common path and take, even in professionals gray with age, new steps towards eminence. Horace yielded epic poetry to Virgil and Martial the lyric to Horace. Terence opted for comedy, Perseus for satire, each hoping to be first in his genre. Bold fancy never succumbed to facile imitation. A pocket mirror for heroes. Baltasar Gracienne. Good morning, Div. Cheers. Oh, cheers, everybody. Oh, crap. Another thing I didn't do this morning. We're slow on the uptake. Very slow indeed. Quick, somebody stall. Oh, I mean, might as well smoke now, because 22 is 22. Yes, first he's very bold and fancy. I can see why you might have your doubts. Trust that he is. Just trust me that he is, because I promise. So, is anyone ready to step into shoes too big for them? Or, as Shilomania put it, they might be Crocs. Shit. If I don't die here first. uh, uh, transgression of the law. When Louis XIV died in 1715, after a glorious 55-year reign. Okay, let's just think about that for a second. Like, I think the average reign of a king back in this time was about 20, maybe 30 years, if they were lucky. So to rule for 5.5 decades, I almost said 5.5 centuries. Nobody rules for 550 years. Only Jesus rules over his kingdom for any length anywhere close to that. Morning Frogget over on the Rumble side. First, he says his real name is Ebenezer Beelzebub. So that. Oh boy, we may lose Darth to that toke. I promise you, we haven't lost Darth to a toke yet. It might be time. Anyway, 55 years, 5.5 decades. Louis XIV ruled over, I think, France or something. All eyes focused on his great-grandson and chosen successor, the future Louis XV. Would the boy, only 5 at the time, prove as great a leader as the Sun King? Louis XIV transformed a country on the verge of civil war. Oh boy. So, like us? Be very careful, Shilomania. I don't know if you know this, but Divinity is actually a Crocs advocate. Just saying. And she will defend her Crocs. Did no bullshit. She'll do it. I've seen it. I've seen it. She will defend the honor of the honorable Croc shoe because, well, you can walk through an entire lake with them on, and I mean, they're gonna get wet, but they're not gonna stay wet like regular shoes. Better. They're better for that. Anyway. Yeah. I agree. Ah, okay, where were we? The last years of his reign, this is Louis the 14th, mind you, had been difficult. He had been old and tired. I mean, he ruled for 55 years, bro. But it was hoped that the child would develop into the kind of strong ruler who would reinvigorate the land and add to the firm foundation that Louis the 14th had laid. Now, I can think of one set of modern day, like a father and son duo specifically, that ruled over a great empire. And I'm going to tell you this, guys. George W. Bush and George H.W. Bush were just as big a piece of shit, one as the other. I know almost everybody has fond memories of George Herbert Walker Bush, if you're fucking old enough, over George W. Bush. I mean, I'm not saying that anyone believes one was better than the other, but people definitely have a more negative image of W. Bush than they do of H.W. Bush. No, just as big a piece of shit. Like, if you want to talk about filling a piece of shit's shoes and their legacy, George W. Bush outshined his dad's legacy of being a piece of shit by being a bigger piece of shit. It's true. You can look it up. Fuck the Bushes. Not even kidding. To this end, the child was given the best minds of France as his tutors. Okay, this men who would instruct him in the arts of statecraft, in the methods that the Sun King had perfected. Okay, well, if the Sun King perfected these methods and not these tutors, what do they know about it? Like, nothing was neglected in his education except for, I don't know, like practical experience. That's the thing about the fucking educated, is they lack in the practical experience. But when Louis the 15th came to the throne in 1726, a sudden change came over him. He no longer had to study or please others to prove himself. He stood alone at the top of a great country with wealth and power at his command. He could do as he wished. Oh my God. So, here he is, young, headstrong, and finds himself in a position of phenomenal wealth and power that he didn't earn, that he's never had wield of. Uh, I'm just gonna ask you guys, those of you who have kids, or those of you who are around kids often enough, what exactly do you think would happen to the household if the kids suddenly got unlimited power and authority over the house? How many of you can confidently say that would go not terribly? Because I got a really good feeling when this sudden change comes over our boy, it's not going to go the way it went when his father, who built the empire, took control of it. Yeah, Frog says that would be bad. Uh, yeah, for most people, I think if their kids like suddenly got control of their empire, that would probably go pretty fucking bad. Yes, the uh, first he agrees. He says absolute chaos. I don't have kids. I've known a bunch of people who do. I got some nieces and nephews that also aren't related to me because my actual siblings don't have kids either, thank God, for those poor orphans. In the first years of his reign, Louis gave himself over to pleasure. Oh, hedonism, leaving the government in the hands of a trusted minister, Andre Hercule de Fleury. So Hercules the McFlurry over here. This caused little concern, for he was a young man who needed to sow his wild oats. I mean, kids will be kids. That's what they were. That's the excuse they used at first, I'm sure. Oh, excuse me. I'm still dying from that toke from like 15 minutes ago. Ugh. Good morning, Heidi. It says Ford. That's not how you spell Ford, but I'm pretty sure that's supposed to say F word. My FOMO is growing exponentially as we're so effing close to the end of the book. I can't stay today, and I'm not a fan of it in the slightest. I love you all, and we'll be replay gang in it. Shout out to the replay gang, Heidi. We love you, and I know you'll be there. Like you, you are one of the primary reasons I kept on recording this damn show. Long after I was sick of it. Okay, so we got this guy, Hercules McFlurry, over here. Divinity, I miss you. I never got the chance to thank you for my COVID Christmas present, and I loved it so much. The McFlurry machine is always broken, isn't it, though? Damn, damn France and their surrender monkey ways. And the Flurry was a good minister. Okay, that's why this caused little concern. He's a young kid, he's gonna do young boy shit, like he's gonna do soirees and he's gonna court ladies and he's probably gonna try to conquer a small country, not a big one. But basically, like they're using the excuse this should be expected. But it slowly became clear that this was more than a passing phase. Right. Louis had no interest in governing. His main worry was not Surrender Monkey Land's finances or a possible war with Spain, but boredom. Oh god, he sounds like our kids today. The youth of the modern society, which was raised off of responsibility. He could not stand being bored, and when he was not hunting deer or chasing girls, while he whiled away his time at the gambling tables, losing huge sums in a single night. That sounds like Tim Pool. Oh, are we all appreciating Div's Christmas presents, what she got everybody? Because I opened mine on stream and it was my Christmas present turned out to be really loud and fiery, but mostly peaceful. The court, as usual, as courts do, reflected the tastes of the ruler. Gambling and lavish parties became the obsession. Okay, do you see a problem here, guys? Do you see a problem here, guys? Louis, our man, the 15th here, not the great son King Louis the 14th, but this irresponsible jackwagon of a child doesn't have any interest in being the next Sun King. He doesn't want to be the son of the king. He wants to be a son of a bitch. And he wants to gamble and party all the time. Which is understandable. You go be a kid, let the adults be in charge. But this is exactly how courts work, like to appeal to the interests and the things that are important to the king, people tend to try to emulate the king. So when the king wants gambling and parties, suddenly everybody in the court is engaging in gambling and parties all the time, which leads to the question, who's running the fucking country? Who's in charge of the kingdom if everybody's being a son of a bitch? Take care, Heidi. See you Monday. And I'll see you probably in the comment section on the replay gang too, because Heidi always leaves the best comments in the comment section. They're always thoughtful and poignant. And you too can engage in the conversation as well. Anyone else who might be on the replay gang, all you gotta do is hit up the comment section. Questions, concerns, and emotional outbursts. I look forward to all challenges. The courtiers had no concern with the future of France. Okay, so we've answered the question. Who's running the country? Nobody. Who's driving the car? You got me. They poured their energies into chasing the king, angling for titles that would bring them life pensions, and for cabinet positions demanding little work but paying huge salaries. Parasites flocked to the court, and the state's debts swelled. Oh boy, so we got a bunch of leeches in the government driving up the nation's debt. They have a bunch of parasitic freeloaders flocking to the government demanding fancy jobs, fancy titles, no work, big money. Where have I heard this story before? They probably have cruise control. Nobody has to drive after that. It's sandwich time. Well, as far as I know, there were no women making sandwiches at this time. It doesn't seem like anybody was making sandwiches or the fucking donuts. It kind of strikes me that, and believe it or not, cruise control doesn't. I mean, that's not autopilot. We haven't even perfected autopilot yet. You can tell the horses, damn, go, 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 because they had all their cars were drawn by horses at the time. They were car edges or chariots. And you can tell them horses go, 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 and they'll go. I mean, until they like get tired and you're not there to keep telling them to go. So that cruise control only lasts for that long. But unless you watch where the fuck they're going, they don't know where the fuck they're going. You gonna crash. But yeah, positions demanding little work but paying huge salaries, parasites flock to the court, and the state's debt swelled. It's almost like it's happening again. Like literally to our court with our parasites. In 1745, Louis fell in love with Madame de Pompadour, a woman of middle class origin who had managed to rise through her charms, her intelligence, and a good marriage. This is a proper, charming, intelligent, married woman who has caught the fancy of the king. Madame de Pompadour became the official royal mistress. She also became France's arbiter of taste and fashion. But the Madame had political ambitions as well. Doesn't it seem like everybody close to Louis has just got the ambitions of like give me free shit? It's almost like in the very last law, they didn't realize, that you're supposed to abhor free shit. And she eventually emerged as the country's unofficial prime minister. Oh boy. Oh fucking boy. It was she, not Louis, who wielded hiring and firing power over France's most important ministers. Dear God, no, we've done it. We have put a woman in charge. A woman, y'all. In the land of semi ancient surrender monkey, we have put a woman in charge. Let's find out just how competent and equal female leaders are. Let's find out. Hopefully, Madame de Pompadour does not live up to my expectations. As he grew older, Louis only needed more diversion, so he's becoming more and more depraved. On the grounds of Versailles, he built a brothel, Parc aux Cerfs. I'm not even gonna fucking stupid surrender monkey language, which housed some of the prettiest young whores in France. I mean, it says girls, but fuck out of here. Underground passages and hidden staircases gave Louis access at all hours. So when he built this brothel at Versailles, he built it at the end of a tunnel that he had dug from his bedroom. And like put it here. Like pretty sure the tunnel ends right here. After Madame de Pompadour died in 1764, she was succeeded as royal mistress by Madame du Barry, who soon came to. Okay, so I mean, it sounds like I think it's here here. The this kind like when you say here here like you really want people to shut up and pay attention. Here here. But it sounds like Madame de Pompadour didn't do a terrible job. It doesn't sound like the country collapsed while she was in charge. All that happened was a brothel was built and some ministers were hired and fired. But Madame du Barry here, her replacement, soon came to dominate the court, and who, like Pompadour before her, began to meddle in affairs of state. I love the fact that he uses the word meddle because you don't meddle non-maliciously. If you're uh, interacting in affairs of state for the positive gain, nobody ever calls it meddling. You notice that? It's clever use of language, but it is true. If a minister did not please her, he would find himself fired. All of Europe was aghast when Dubarry, the daughter of a baker, managed to arrange the firing of Etienne de Choiseul, which is surrender monkey for Etienne's. I think they make donuts. No, that's Entenmann's. My bad. I don't know what this means. Stupid surrender monkey language being what it is. The foreign minister and France's most able diplomat. Oh wow. So literally, this was their like emissary guy, like the diplomat guy. Like he's the guy in charge of foreign policy. He had shown her too little respect. Well, she's a woman. What respect does she think she deserves? Is written in the Ten Commandments, I think. Thou shalt not listen to women. Yeah. Thou shalt not, like, put women in positions of authority and try to pretend to show them respect for their authority because, well, they're women. As time went by, swindlers and charlatans made their nests in Versailles because, well, no leadership that invites in the roaches and the rats. Sup, Castro? Shout out to my man who is only Rumble Gang. Okay, what's going on? I respect all the hoes. Div is the same. Apparently, people here respect the hoes, but I think Charlemagne's right. I think it's in the Ten Commandments. Thou shalt not love these hoes. Oh, no touchy is written. Oh, no touchy definitely is actually written in the Ten Commandments. I think it's like seventh though. It's like not. It's not one of the top commandments. It's like That no committing the adultery was like it's down the list a ways. But still, I mean, all the 10 Commandments are commanded to you. I want to say in equal measure, but that's not technically true. That's why they're in order, but they're in a specific order, so you remember them in that order. I know it's a bad interpretation. I'm not a religious biblical scholar like some of the people in this room, and I never claim to be. So I'm not going to step into those great shoes because, well, I'll just do poor interpretations and sound like I'm stupid and don't know what I'm talking about. I interpret the laws of power for that reason. I'm still learning how to learn on the Bible. Okay, so the charlatans and swindlers enticed Louis' interest in astrology, the occult, and fraudulent business deals. So we're getting into fortune telling, Satan worshiping, occult, and scams. Great. This this is going to be awesome. The young and pampered teenager who had taken over France years before had only grown worse with age, more spoiled, more demanding, and more of a shit. Honestly, it's not really a problem for me. I don't have as many hoes throwing themselves at me as much as you might think. I know, like, when people think just because you say the pimp's prayer, Lord, have mercy on the soul of this bitch. Guide my pimp hand and make it strong, Lord, that she might know a hoe's place. Amen. Just because you say the pimp's prayer all the time doesn't mean you're actually walking around with a bunch of hoes. It's just the two things aren't directly correlated. Okay, Castro's saying hi to everybody over on Rumble. So I know that everybody's over here kind of like in the YouTube portion. Go wave to Castro over on Rumble. He's being very polite. At least Frog gets over there to kick it. The motto that became attached to Louis' reign was surrender monkey words. Après moi le déluge. Oh, after me the flood. I mean, I know I don't actually speak any sort of French, but I'm almost certain I didn't get that too terribly wrong. Après moi le déluge. After me the flood. Or let France rot after I am gone. It sounds like France already started rotting while you were there, bro. Like, long before you left. It sounds like you started fucking France all the way up. But I mean, it's France, so that can't be too damn hard. France is a giant alleged shithole. I don't speak Surrender Monkey or know anything about Surrender Monkey history. I mean, I know a lot more now about like Napoleon and Talleyrand and the betrayal and shit because Robert Greene loves to reference the fucking Napoleonic Empire as like the one of the key pinnacle examples of power. There's not nearly enough mention of the Roman Empire in this book. And if I ever wrote a 48 Laws of Power book, I would put more references to Caesar and Rome in here. Although there are several, there's just way too much. France is on the list, but Paris do be looking pretty rough. A meat. Oh, I don't think I don't think we see a meat. Have we ever seen a meat in my show at all before? Like, I know, I see a meat over at Paul's and over at Div's. I can't. No, I don't speak Surrender Monkey Shalamania. Like I said, I do not. But I have heard it sometimes, and when they did the translation right here in the book, I know that deluge means like a flood or a heavy rain, and I know that moi is me because I guess I speak a little, functionally as much as pretty much anybody who's ever heard Surrender Monkey be spoken in a movie. Ah, and indeed, when Louis did go in 1774, he sparked the American Revolution 2 years later because fuck this guy. No, wait. This is just a coincidence. Oh, I see the Hawkett podcast over on the Twitter side, but it didn't pop up on my StreamYards. Strange. Oh, there it is. It does pop up. It shows. This is a me in the Twitter side. It's the little X symbol. That's why. I was gonna say I don't think Amit's even subscribed to my YouTube channel, but Amit does follow me on the Twitter sphere, so I guess it's good that I actually decided to start throwing these up on the X side of things. I am not sure what this emoji is. Can anybody tell me? It looks like a steak. Is it a steak? It's hard to tell on the StreamYard side, and I don't have YouTube open right now. Okay, it's 1774. Louis is dying, worn out by debauchery. His country and his own finances were in horrible disarray. And his grandson, Louis the 16th, because these people are super original with their names. Louis the 16th inherited a realm in desperate need of reform and a strong leader. Ah, does this sound familiar? Does this sound like the land that you live in right now? But Louis the 16th, oh boy, was even weaker than his grandfather and could only watch as the country descended into revolution. In 1792, the republic introduced by the French Revolution declared the end of the monarchy and gave the king a new name, Louis the Last. A few months later, he kneeled on the guillotine, his about to be severed head stripped of all the radiance and power that the Sun King had invested in the crown. And right after that, all fucking hell broke loose. So great grandfather Louis the 14th, because this is grandson two grandsons, so it would be your grandfather's grandfather. So yeah, I think there's three or four greats on that. Like all of this in the span of like four generations, 100 years or so. And it went from being a mighty empire with a king who called himself the Sun King, and people went with that. So this must have been a great man indeed, who had his shoes filled by a much lesser man. Like I was hoping for the example of Marcus Aurelius and Constantine, because Marcus Aurelius was considered the philosopher king, and Constantine was considered overwhelmingly a giant piece of shit by everybody involved. And I know a little bit more about the Roman history than I do about the French. So that's a fun story. We may actually get to that at some point in this chapter. I hope such a thing comes up, but shout out to Robert Greene. If we had Bijou here right now, she would post his YouTube channel because the author of this book has his own YouTube channel, and he does more talking about some of the concepts in this book on that channel. But shout out to that guy and his love for the French empires of the time. Everybody has their own history that fascinates them. Interpretation. From a country that had descended into civil war in the late 1640s, Louis XIV forged the mightiest realm in Europe. Great generals would tremble in his presence. A cook once made a mistake in preparing a dish and committed self die rather than face the king's wrath. Louis XIV had many mistresses, but their power ended in the bedroom. Take notes, gentlemen. Take fucking notes. No offense, ladies. You know I love you. And you know I think you're all wonderful. But when it comes to a woman's authority in positions of true power, this is the fucking way. Their power ended in the bedroom. He filled his court with the most brilliant minds of the age. So, not women. Sorry. We love ya. Neil. I mean, there we go. The symbol of his power was Versailles. Refusing to accept the palace of his forefathers, the Louvre, he built his own palace in what was then the middle of nowhere, symbolizing that this was a new order he had founded, one without precedent. He made Versailles the centerpiece of his reign, a place that all the powerful of Europe envied and visited with a sense of awe. In essence, Louis took a great void, the decaying monarchy of France, and filled it with his own symbols and radiant power. So he basically refused to capitulate to tradition, and he made everybody come to him in all his splendor. I can guarantee you they do not. I can guarantee you they do not know these rules, Firsty. I'm sure there's a couple of them that are giving me the side eye right now. And Cat Ninja makes a good point. If men knew these rules, women and their opinions would be largely irrelevant because we're bigger and stronger and smarter, but they're sexier, they look better naked, and men are slaves to their own innate biological nature. That is why simps and cucks exist. Because men are weak. It is true. And that is why women have as much power as they have today, because of the weakness of men explicitly. Louis the 15th, on the other hand, like, here we go. He's going to explain. Symbolizes the fate of all those who inherit something large or who follow in a great man's footsteps. It would seem easy for a son or successor to build on the grand foundation left for them, but in the realm of power, the opposite is true. And we can see this so, so, so commonly, where sons and heirs of great fortunes or great empires have no concept of what it took to build it, no idea of what it takes to maintain it. All they know is the leisure and luxury of being an heir to great wealth, and all they really ever manage to do is squander it. That's why great fortunes rarely last more than 3 generations. It takes the first generation to build it, the second generation to begin the decline, and the third generation to truly destroy it. Usually. There are exceptions, notable exceptions going either way. Like some people can destroy it in 1 generation, some can, uh, very, very few can actually continue to grow it, but then you get institutional old money wealth. I mean, we got the intuition, but no one tells. You think so? Let anybody with a body control you. That sounds like a song. First he says I'm a great hugger, and Div says it's because you're a fat husky. Fat husky. You dirty dog. Anyway. The pampered, indulged son almost always squanders the inheritance. It's almost like we just said that. For he does not start with the father's need to fill a void. Yes, like the people who build these things are building them because they are necessary. Like there is a drive, a determination to fill that void. As Machiavelli states, necessity is what compels men to take action. This says impels. I don't know if that's actually a word, but compels is a word. And once the necessity is gone, only rot and decay are left. I mean, a good example, a wonderful fucking example of this is like America. Like, America was founded by people who were fleeing all types of tyranny and persecution in Europe for the great unknown of freedom in the New World. There was a void. It was called liberty. People longed for the idea of mostly escaping religious persecution and being able to practice as they see fit. There were also lots of wars and shit. They tell us we don't listen because we are the superior creatures. Unfortunately, Div is And Div and Shy are very right, except for uh, we probably not as. I'm not saying that we shouldn't listen to your opinions. I'm just saying we shouldn't like act on that. Maybe not always, anyway. Oh, a meet over on the Rumble side. Shout out to Rumble. I've been kind of ignoring it because it's oh, not really, just people being social over there, hanging out. Much love to the Rumble chat. Ah, having no need to increase his store of power, Louis the 15th inevitably succumbed to inertia. Under him, Versailles, the symbol of the Sun King's authority, became a pleasure palace of incomparable banality, a kind of Las Vegas of the Bourbon monarchy, Sin City, sodomy and gimme mora. It came to represent all that the oppressed peasantry of France hated about their king. And during the revolution, they looted it with glee. Of course they did. That's what happens in peasant revolutions. The looting and the shooting and all the bullshit. Oh, that's long. Uh, Louis the 15th had only one way out of the trap awaiting the son or successor of a man like the Sun King. To psychologically begin from nothing, to denigrate the past and his inheritance, and to move in a totally new direction, creating his own world. So, if he were to actually succeed out of this bullshit, he would have had to abhor the free lunch, start from basically scratch, ignoring all the power and authority he has, and literally figure out how to build something else because he has no idea how to maintain this thing that his grandfather built. Assuming you have the choice, it would be better to avoid the situation altogether. To place yourself where there is a vacuum of power, where you can be the only one to bring order out of chaos without having to compete with another star in the sky. Power depends on appearing larger than other people. But when you are lost in the shadow of the Father, the King, the great predecessor, you cannot possibly project such a presence. Thank you. Thank you for that. Oi! Feliz el viernes! Señor Gohagen. Buenos dias, amigo. Happy fucking Friday from Mr. Gohagen. But yeah, I mean, this statement here. You can't possibly be expected to live up to the legacy of somebody who has built a legacy that reaches historical proportions. I hear that Castro, Fidel Castro, not Jacob Castro, but Fidel Castro, I hear he's got kids. Didn't he die? Because I heard a lot about Fidel Castro back when he was in charge of Cuba, but I heard he left his piece of shit kids in charge, and I don't hear nothing about them. Because, I mean, what are they doing but taking over an already ruined communist shithole? He's in charge of his kid's in charge of Canada. Uh, you are right. I mean, I am a fully Trudeau truther, but I was talking about his like actual like not his bastard kids, but his trueborn sons that rule over Cuba, I believe. I mean, but yeah, the kid that runs Canada, he's definitely creating a legacy all his own. He is a man of true power and influence. That Justin Trudeau, Justin Trudeau. Anyway, poor Jacob. Like he has to have that name too. That guy. We love our Jacob Castro though. We don't like the Castro from Canada. Nobody likes that guy. But when they began to make sovereignty hereditary, the children quickly degenerated from their fathers, and, so far from trying to equal their father's virtues, they considered that a prince had nothing else to do than excel all the rest in idleness, indulgence, and every other variety of pleasure. Niccolo Machiavelli. And Machiavelli is right. Like, I believe, and don't quote me on this, I am no expert, but I believe that a lot of the great Chinese empires in the dynasties, they didn't go through linear succession, but rather like they gathered the prodigy kids together, and basically they would train them all, and the one that ended up cheersing the loudest and the strongest. Hopefully, I don't die. Cheers, y'all. Happy twins. Okay. But yeah, they would select the one who like showed the most promise to be the successor, and it wasn't a hereditary thing. You had to meritocratically earn the right of succession. That sounds like a much better system than just like, oh, this guy's going to be king next because he's my son. Yeah, it doesn't make him qualified. That does not make your piece of shit kid qualified just because they happen to be your piece of shit kid, coach. Somebody should have told George W. Bush that. But no, nobody decided to say that just because your daddy was a shitty president doesn't mean we want you to be a shitty president too. Get you and your dumb, corrupt political family the fuck out of my country. I mean, not out of the country. You don't gotta leave. Just get the fuck out of politics and influence. Like, fuck you people. I said it. Fuck George Bush. And if little Jebby or any of the rest of them thinks about running, fuck them too. I said it. Yeah, I'm not doing that. Why do the punch-ins become so much longer as well as the book gets further in? So, what we learned. You're talking about that TV show? I always get the TV show Empire confused in my mind with the TV show Power, which, I believe 50 Cent was the executive producer on the TV show Power. I believe that's also based on the concepts in this book. So if you haven't seen the show Power, I recommend it. I hear Empire is really good too. I always think I've seen that, and then every reference that I make is like, no, that's not Empire, that's Power. So I don't think I've ever actually seen Empire. But I do remember watching, like, the first 5 seasons or 4 seasons, however many of the show Power, and was one of the last good television programs I ever saw, would recommend. Also do believe it's based on this book because, 50 Cent. Cheers, guys. Is the room spinning for anyone else? No, Firsty, that's just you. Firsty's Fed posting everybody. Don't mind him. Lady Autumn Sky! Finest of afternoons to you, my dear. Good to see you. You confuse the two shows, but you haven't seen either one? How could you confuse the two shows if you haven't seen either one? Like, I mean, when people say Empire in my head, because I don't think I've ever seen it, always just make references to the show Power, where the main character built himself like a drug and then becoming political empire. Anyway, I just thought that was funny. But yeah, I mean, don't ever expect the air to ever not be overshadowed unless the air is great in the realm where the father was terrible, which is almost never actually a thing. Like the son outshining the father almost doesn't happen in places where they were raised in luxury and power and not forced to actually fight for it. But let's find out an observance of the law. Alexander the Great. Oh, that's a good name to start with. Had a dominant passion as a young man, an intense dislike for his father, King Philip of Macedonia. Good. This is a good way to start. Start off intensely disliking your father. He hated Philip's cunning, cautious style of ruling, his bombastic speeches, his drinking and whoring, and his love of wrestling and of other wastes of time. Oh man, I'm not gonna lie. I kinda fucks with King Philip of Macedonia right now. Like, he likes drinking and whoring and wrestling. My kind of guy. Alexander knew he had to make himself the very opposite of his domineering father. He would force himself to be bold and reckless. He would control his tongue and be a man of few words. He would not lose precious time in pursuit of pleasures that brought no glory. Alexander also resented the fact that Philip had conquered most of Greece. My father will go on conquering till there is nothing extraordinary left for me to do. Oh man, you are stealing all my future glory by just like conquering up all the world. And of course, at this period in history, they didn't know just how big the world was and how much left there was to conquer. I don't believe it's wrestling, not that we understand it in the current day. First one shot loves wrestling horse. Well, as a Fed, I'm sure you get plenty of practice with wrestling horse. By the way, y'all, first one shot is a Fed post. Don't ever give him your information. Never talk to the cops. Wrestling, yeah, wrestling and whores and drinking. This sounds like my kind of guy. But yeah, I mean, Alexander's pissed because his father's very successful in doing the conquering, and he really wants to conquer some shit when he's old enough. While other sons of powerful men were content to inherit wealth and a life of leisure, Alexander wanted only to outdo his father. So that is his one goal, is to literally outshine the master, break law one. Break law one. The very first law is the very first law for a reason. Break law one. First one shot has questions. I hope I'm right when I understand that they're not about outshining your father, but about wrestling whores. Yeah, be careful messing with Shallowmania. Number one, she doesn't wrestle. She's got space lasers, legitimate fucking space lasers. And unless you're blue, you're gonna get fucked over big time. Be careful with the Shallowmania. Also, not a horror, so far as I know. Very traditional girl, quite classy, but also sassy, never trashy. At first one shot, I have answers. However, they probably won't match the questions you have. There you go. You tell them, Lady Autumn Sky. Oh, Fed stuff. No, no, don't. He has questions and it's Fed stuff. Don't answer those. Don't answer the Fed stuff questions. I mean, I agree with Go Blue, but unfortunately, the dynasty we have built, uh, I think it's going to collapse. In our next series of great wars. But shout out to the national champions, University of Michigan, though. That was nice to see again in my lifetime. Alexander wanted only to outdo his father, to obliterate Philip's name from history by surpassing his accomplishments. Okay, chat on all the platforms, a show of hands. Who has heard of Alexander the Great? Yeah, I'm the gays. Everyone know that. College ball's the only ball. Like the NFL, fucking Taylor Swift and psyops and BLM. Yeah, you go ahead, bro. Uh, Pro ball is where it's at. Cause I mean, yeah, everyone. Show of hands. Alexander the Great. How many of y'all know of King Philip of Macedonia, his father, and anything he ever accomplished? Because I knew that Alexander the Great's father was King Philip. I don't know any of King Philip of Macedonia's story because, from what I heard historically, it's super irrelevant by comparison. So Alexander the Great did end up accomplishing this root goal. Uh, Baseball is where it's at. Literally hitting a ball with a stick and running in circles. At least you didn't say bouncy ball was where it's at. At least you didn't say bouncy ball. Yeah, shout out to the National Guard. Oh yeah, pitching. I mean, yeah, I don't follow baseball because it's almost as boring as golf. I'm not gonna say that it's as boring as golf, but tennis is more of a skill game than baseball. Changed my mind. Alexander itched to show others how superior he was to his father. A Thessalian horse dealer once brought a prize horse named Bucephalus to sell to Philip. None of the king's grooms could get near the horse. It was far too savage. And Philip berated the merchant for bringing him such a useless beast. Watching the whole affair, Alexander scowled and commented, "What a horse they are losing for want of skill and spirit to manage him." So, what he's saying is, hold my beer, pussies. I'm gonna break this horse. Not a knackered old nag. This is a mean spirited, violent. Wait, what? What? Wait a minute. What? Oh, look at that. Yeah, I remember when they did that gay shit. Like, we make way too much money. This is how the baseball strike went, as I recall it. Like, I think it was the early 2000s. We make way too much money to play a fucking children's game, but we're not going to play until you give us more money because this sport makes money and we want it, even though we're paid to play a children's game and not much more. Fuck out of here. You whiny little bitches. Like, shut up and smack the ball with the stick. Throw it and smack it and run the circles and enjoy the fact that you get paid millions of dollars to do that. I'm fairly certain I said the same thing when the NBA went on strike. Like, quit whining. There's way too much going on in chat right now. We have lost the plot. Ah, who knew you had so many ways to say you're gay? Are you talking to me, Dev? Because I guarantee you that I have way more ways to say I'm gays than you could ever begin to get your head around. I could say something else, but I'm not going to right now. Ah, anyway, hold Alexander the Great's beer. Oh, diamond. I'm sorry. Yes, it's a square shape turned point up, so they call it a diamond. It's not actually a diamond shaped. It's a square. Hmm. Oh, oh, Div is going to kill me. Stop it. Stop it. Uh, uh. When he had said this several times, Philip had finally had enough and challenged him to take on the horse. I thought he was just gonna do it, but no, he had to like get called out. He called the merchant back, secretly hoping his son would have a nasty fall and learn a bitter lesson. But Alexander was the one to teach the lesson. Not only did he mount Bucephalus, he managed to ride him at full gallop, taming the horse that would later carry him all the way to India. The courtiers applauded wildly, but Philip seethed inside, seeing not a son, but a rival to his power. So, this is one of those, hey, Dad, watch this. And then he proceeded to show Pops, like, what the business was. And good on him for it. Alexander's defiance of his father grew bolder. Of course it did. One day the two men had a heated argument before the entire court, and Philip drew his sword as if to strike his son. Having drunk too much wine, however, the king stumbled. Alexander pointed at his father and jeered. Men of Macedonia, see, there the man who is preparing to pass from Europe to Asia. He cannot pass from one table to another without falling. Hey, look, guys. My dad's Joe Biden. Joe Biden, guys. He can't even walk. At least Joe Biden trips upstairs. King Philip trips on flat ground. When Alexander was 18, a disgruntled courtier murdered Philip. As word of the regicide spread through Europe, regicide means you kill your regal king. City after city rose up in rebellion against their Macedonian rulers. Philip's advisors counseled Alexander, now king, to proceed cautiously, to do as Philip had done and conquer through cunning, which we have learned is the way, the best way. But Alexander had other ideas, and Alexander would do things his way. He marched to the furthest reaches of the kingdom, suppressed the rebellious towns, and reunited the empire with brutal efficiency. So, if you're going to be brutal, it is damned sure best to be efficient in doing so, because brutality for its own sake only breeds contempt. We have learned this in previous laws. As a young rebel grows older, his struggle against the father often wanes, and he gradually comes to resemble the very man he wanted to defy. But Alexander's loathing of his father did not end with Philip's death. Once he had consolidated Greece, he set his eyes on Persia, the prize that had eluded his father, who had dreamed of conquering Asia. If he defeated the Persians, Alexander would finally surpass Philip in glory and fame. Alexander crossed into Asia with an army of 35,000 to face a Persian force numbering over 1,000,000. Okay? Are we all following these numbers? 35,000 versus 1,000,000. There's a reason Philip never managed to conquer Persia. Can anybody guess what that reason is? Before engaging the Persians in battle, he passed through the town of Gordium. Here, in the town's main temple, there stood an ancient chariot tied with cords made of the rind of the cornel tree. Legend had it that any man who could undo these cords, the Gordian knot, would rule the world. Many had tried to untie the enormous and intricate knot, but none had succeeded. Does anybody know the story of the Gordian knot? This is one of my favorite tales of Alexander the Great. Seeing he could not possibly untie the knot with his bare hands, he took out his sword and with one slash cut it in half. This symbolic gesture showed the world that he would not do as others, but he would blaze his own path. He undid the Gordian knot extremely brutally, extremely efficiently. Slice and done. Any other questions, guys? There's no more not. Against astounding odds, Alexander conquered the Persians. Most expected him to stop there. It was a great triumph, enough to secure his fame for eternity. But Alexander had the same relationship to his own deeds as he had to his father. His conquest of Persia represented the past, and he never wanted to rest on past triumphs or allow the past to outshine the present. So he was not content with, okay, I've achieved glory. I'm going to spend the rest of my days uh, reminiscing in glory days, the days of my youth. Nope, nope, sorry, not me. He moved on to India, extending his empire beyond all known limits. Only his disgruntled and weary soldiers prevented him from going further. So he did so much conquering and war that the people who he had doing the actual fighting were like, fuck this shit, we're out. We ain't conquering and warring no more. We've already gone all the way to the end of the map. We tired, boss. Fuck you. Interpretation. Alexander represents an extremely uncommon type in history. Literally, like, I mean, if you think about it, there's very, 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 very few examples of Alexander the Great types out there. The son of a famous and successful man who manages to surpass his father in glory and power. The reason this type is uncommon is simple. The father often manages to amass his fortune, his kingdom, because he begins with little or nothing. A desperate urge impels him to succeed, desperation being the urge. He has nothing to lose by cunning and impetuousness, and has no famous father of his own to compete with. This kind of man has reason to believe in himself, to believe that his way of doing things is the best because, after all, it worked for him. They literally build their something out of nothing successfully, which is why they have the confidence to keep fucking building and to build to great heights because they're successful in their pursuits. When a man like this has a son, he becomes domineering and oppressive, imposing his lessons on the son who is starting off life in circumstances totally different from those in which the father himself began. So it's the difference between starting with nothing and starting with everything. And you just can't have the same level of drive and hunger when you have no desperation in you. And when everything is already like all your needs are met because you're a child of wealth and privilege, what could you possibly know of desperation? The answer is almost always fucking nothing. You have no clue. Like, I mean, look at the young people who bitch about their like contrived first world problems right here in America. If your biggest concern is your fucking pronouns, you're one of the most privileged people on the planet. If that's what you've got to complain about right now. We've got a whole generation inheriting from people who inherited all, back two or three now of people who knew nothing of desperation by and large. I mean, yes, there are people who know desperation. There are poors everywhere, but by and large, as a society, we're the richest country the world has ever seen. Well, we were for a while. I don't know if that's still true. I think it's still true, but instead of allowing the son to go in a new direction, the father will try to put him in his own shoes, perhaps secretly wishing the boy will fail, as Philip half wanted to see Alexander thrown from Bucephalus. Fathers envy their sons' youth and vigor, after all, and their desire is to control and dominate. The sons of such men the sons of such men tend to become cowed and cautious, terrified of losing what their fathers have gained. And because they're terrified of losing it, they set themselves up to do exactly that. The son will never step out of his father's shadow unless he adopts the ruthless strategy of Alexander. Disparage the past, create your own kingdom, Put the father in the shadow instead of letting him do the same to you. If you cannot materially start from ground zero, it would be foolish to renounce an inheritance. You can at least begin from ground zero psychologically by throwing off the weight of the past and charting a new direction. Be the master of your own destiny. Alexander instinctively recognized that privileges of birth are impediments to power. Be merciless with the past, then, not only with your father and his father, but with your own earlier achievements. Only the weak rest on their laurels and dote on past triumphs. In the game of power, there is never time to rest. Always be hustling, y'all. Always be on the grind. Never settle, never relax. If you are pushing to the top, if you're pushing to the top, even if you get there will always be somebody behind you trying to knock you off the top. So stay pushing so that you can put yourself so far away from those who may attempt to dethrone you, to knock you down, that you always stay on your way to the top. Chase higher heights than even what the preconceived notion of power, the pinnacle, was. The problem of Paul Morphy. The slightest acquaintance with chess shows that it is a play substitute for the art of war. And indeed, it has been a favorite recreation of some of the greatest military leaders from William the Conqueror to Napoleon. In the contest between opposing armies, the same principles of both strategy and tactics are displayed as in actual war. The same foresight and powers of calculation are necessary. The same capacity for divining the plans of the opponent and the rigor with which decisions are followed by their consequences is, if anything, even more ruthless. More than that, it is plain that the unconscious motive actuating the players is not the mere love of pugnacity characteristic of all competitive games, but the grimmer one of father murder. It is true that the original goal of capturing the king has been given up. But from the point of view of motive, there is, except in respect of crudity, not appreciable change in the present goal of sterilizing him in immobility. Checkmate means literally the king is dead. Our knowledge of the unconscious motivation of chess playing tells us that what it represented could only have been the wish to overcome the father in an acceptable way. It is no doubt significant that the 19th century chess champion Paul Morphy's soaring odyssey into the higher realms of chess began just a year after the unexpectedly sudden death of his father, which had been a great shock to him. And we may surmise that his brilliant effort of sublimation was, like Shakespeare's Hamlet and Freud's The Interpretation of Dreams, a reaction to this critical event. Something should now be said about the reception Morphy's success met with, for they were of such a kind as to raise the question whether his subsequent collapse may not have been influenced through his perhaps belonging to the type that Freud has described under the name of those wrecked by success. It says Diem Irfolschitarian. Yeah, my Swiss German's not very good. Couched in more psychological language, was Morphy affrighted at his own presumptuousness when the light of publicity was thrown on his great success? Freud had pointed out that the people who break under the strain of too great success do so because they can endure it only in imagination, not in reality. I mean, look at all the actors and rock stars, celebrities who gain extreme fame and notoriety through art. But I mean, if you think about working as an actor or working as a musician, sure, there's work involved, but it's not like the type of laborious effort that requires to conquer a nation. So these people, they attain incredible wealth and power through very little actual work relative to the what they attain. They party themselves to death in so many cases. So many people who find unearned wealth end up being destroyed by it or destroying it, and they end up absolutely broke. To castrate the father in a dream is a very different matter from doing it in reality. The real situation provokes the unconscious guilt in its full force, and the penalty may be mental collapse. So, in the case of this fantasy, the what is it, patricide, killing your father? I think that's called patricide. It it's a great analogy because we all may think of doing all these things, but the reality of actually doing it. Yeah, parents. Thank you, Div. But yeah, I mean, chess is symbolic in that regard because you can't really do that in real life. It would destroy most people. But Paul Morphy rose to immense fame and success shortly after his father died, like many do. Once that shadow is no longer being cast, then people are allowed in themselves to shine because they can't actually kill that shadow in reality. The Problem of Paul Morphy, Ernest Jones, 1951. That was a fun little punch in right there. Keys to power. In many ancient kingdoms, for example, Bengal and Sumatra, after the king had ruled for several years, his subjects would execute him. This was done partly as a ritual of renewal, but also to prevent him from growing too powerful, for the king would generally try to establish a permanent order at the expense of other families and of his own sons. Instead of protecting the tribe and leading it in times of war, he would attempt to dominate it, and so he would be beaten to death. or executed in an elaborate ritual. Now that he was no longer around for his honors to go to his head, he could be worshipped as a god. Meanwhile, the field had been cleared for a new and youthful order to establish itself. Hey guys, this is absolutely Sith shit right here, Div. Like that is literally after Bane established the rule of two in the Sith order in the lore. Uh, like the only path to succession was to kill your master outright and then take an apprentice of your own. But if you attempted to kill the master and failed, you would be done away with. But you were like the the rule of of what Bane had designed would be for the apprentice to try to strike down the master at the peak of his power, which if anyone knows the story of Bane himself, like he had a significant problem in his own regard with his first apprentice in this manner is he was starting to get old and his apprentice never rose up against to slay him. It's a very long and complicated concept, but I think actually the rule of two is very applicable to this concept and unfortunately is only a tail and not wheel because the weight of it would be too much for people to kill their master and mentor and seize his power. Oh, 1 second, y'all. My coffee pot just informed me that it is shutting off. I'm going to go grab another cup. I'll be back in like maybe 20 seconds. Please talk amongst yourselves and don't let anybody leave. I'll be right back. Stupid auto shut off. Okay. Jeez. Wow, I'm gone for 5 seconds. Someone blocked the door. Hostage situation. I'm eating firsty first. Where is the Fed? He will keep us fed until next one. It's funny because he's fat. Oh, Jesus. Man, I walk away for 15 seconds. Guys. In a mutiny? Really? Delicious. Firsty, you might want to run, dude. Like, there's a bunch of hangry women and they're looking for you, and one of them has a knife. Ah. uh, so, anybody, do you see why Bengal and Sumatra did things the way they do? Like, when their leaders started to get, before their leaders could even start to get too uppity, they executed them and then worshiped them as gods. Now, this has no use to these dead leaders, but the people who are coming up next see the honor and tradition and are easier groomed to accept their fate if they take the power position of king because they know they're gonna end up dead at some point. Like it's literally like being being elected to ruler of these tribes was a guaranteed death sentence at some point in your life. Beaten to death or executed in a ritual sacrifice. Like I wonder if we had the same tradition today for our politicians, if these fuckers would sound so fucking smart, or do you think they might like I don't know, term limit themselves if we were like, yeah, if you get too uppity in your position and try to take too much power, we're going to beat you to death. Only we're going to do that way before you do, just randomly to make sure you never do. You think they probably do like one term and get the fuck out, right? Big bones is more meat. Larger bones support more meat. That's science. Yeah, off with your head. Like, if we just randomly executed politicians, not for what they've done, but for what they're capable of doing, what do you think the odds of them, like, making lifelong careers out of politics actually is? I guarantee you, it's not long life careers in politics. I'm not saying we should do this. Yeah, I mean, that's basically what they're talking about right here. They literally said, after the king had ruled for several years, his subjects would execute him. This was done partially as a ritual of renewal, but also to prevent him from growing too powerful. They literally, before the king did anything wrong, they literally just made a ritual of it and executed him. We need a new one now. The last one's got to go. They'd be hella discreet. Yeah, they'd have to be. But even if they were hella discreet, like we're just executing at random. We pulled your number. It's your turn today. Like once a month, we'll draw a name, and that'll be our monthly execution. And if you don't want your name to get drawn, maybe don't keep your name in that bowl for a very long time. I'm not saying we should do this, y'all, but they would fear the people as the founding of the government that we currently live in was supposed to be intended. But we gave them no recourse for fucking fearing the people. I'm not saying we should do this. I'm just saying this is a fucking idea we might want to kick around because they'd be definitely more afraid of us and they wouldn't be doing all the fuck shit that they're doing. I'm I'm just saying it's a thought. Hypothetically, allegedly, I'm not advocating for anything, but maybe we should have a discussion. The ambivalent, hostile attitude towards the king or father figure also finds expression in legends of heroes who do not know their father. Moses, the archetypal man of power, was found abandoned among the bulrushes and never knew his parents. Hercules had no earthly father. He was son of the god Zeus. Later in his life, Alexander the Great spread the story that the god Jupiter Ammon had sired him, not Philip of Macedon. Legends and rituals like these eliminate the human father because he symbolizes the destructive power of the past. Hear, hear. The past prevents the young hero from creating his own world. He must do as his father did, even after that father is dead or powerless. The hero must bow and scrape before his predecessor and yield to tradition and precedent. Fuck that. What had success in the past must be carried over to the present, even though circumstances have greatly changed. This is why I have a problem with fucking traditionalists. Because traditionalists just want to maintain tradition. And if you look at the great progresses we've made as a species, they've all been made for one reason, like the rejection of the old ways. In California, they want to charge us now to use the freeways we fucking paid to create and maintain. I mean, God did it a little different, but nobody questions God's power or God's authority directly. You may question it internally, but you will not challenge it. You cannot challenge it. So God gets to do everything his way, by his plan, because who can shirk and throw off the design of God? I'll wait. So when I say Father, I don't mean God the Father. Yeah, a lot of peeps question, a lot of peeps seek to destroy it. Yeah, I'm just saying he's stuck with the datum. Sun on these hoes. Sun these hoes until the shine is unquestionable. The past also weighs the hero down with an inheritance that he is terrified of losing, making him timid and cautious in most cases. Power depends on the ability to fill a void, to occupy a field that has been cleared of the dead weight of the past. Only after the father figure has been properly done away with will you have the necessary space to create and establish a new world order. There are several strategies you can adopt to accomplish this. Variations on the execution of the king that disguise the violence of the impulse by channeling it in socially acceptable forms. Perhaps the simplest way to escape the shadow of the past is simply to belittle it, playing on the timeless antagonism between the generations. Uh, okay, I'll start. Fucking boomers fucked everything up. Can we all agree? Like, fuck the boomers and their damn entitlement, and they're selling their kids and grandkids and great grandkids' future so they can maintain their own Gibbs that they generally squandered the wealth of the generations before them because they wanted to basically make sure that free shit was secured for them. Fucking boomers. So this is me belittling the legacy of the past of my parents' generation, who are both fucking boomers. For this, you need a convenient older figure to pillory. Ah, I thought they were gonna say Hillary. uh, oof. Mao Zedong Good old Chairman Mao. Confronting a culture that fiercely resisted change, that would be the traditionalist Chinese, played on the suppressed resentment against the overbearing presence of the venerable Confucius in Chinese culture. John F. Kennedy knew the dangers of getting lost in the past. He radically distinguished his presidency from that of his predecessor, Dwight D. Eisenhower, and also from the preceding decade, the 1950s, which Eisenhower personified. Kennedy, for instance, would not play the dull and fatherly game of golf, the most fucking boring game on the planet for anybody who's ever not played it. Boomers try to cut me in line at the farmer's market. This makes me very angry. Tell them to go fuck themselves. I don't care if you're old. What great accomplishment did you achieve by being old? Like, fuck out of here. Stupid entitled fucking boomers. But yeah, Kennedy distinguished himself greatly from Eisenhower. We all see how that went for him. Instead of playing golf, a symbol of retirement and privilege in Eisenhower's passion, he played football on the White House lawn like a man. Who? Ah! In every aspect, his administration represented vigor and youth, as opposed to the stodgy Eisenhower. Kennedy had discovered an old truth. The young are easily set against the old. Yeah, fuck the boomers. Don't get me started on George Carlin's commentary on the arrogant, elitist, racist pastime of golf, because his entire diatribe of golf courses for the homeless is fucking hilarious, and it is a amazing cultural commentary. I agree with you, Go Hagen. Like, watching golf is like watching flies fuck. It's hitting a ball with a crooked stick and then walking after it. And then, if you're lucky enough to find the fucking thing, Numbnuts is gonna hit it again. Yes. I I am with you, Go Hagen. I definitely am a huge fan of that one as well. The distant uh okay, the young are easily set against the old, since they yearn to make their own place in the world and resent the shadow of their fathers. Yes, we do. I love the Legend of Bagger Ranch, though. I've not seen it. I think that's a book too, and I've not read it. I am an uncultured swine in this regard. I like Happy Gilmore. Like, Happy Gilmore made the concept of golf fun. Oh my god, is it 20 after again? Cheers again, y'all. I want to be really baked by the time this chapter's over. The distance you establish from your predecessor often demands some symbolism, a way of advertising itself publicly. Louis XIV, for example, created such symbolism when he rejected the traditional palace of the French kings, the Louvre, and built his own palace of Versailles. King Philip II of Spain did the same when he created his center of power of Escorial, El Escorial, in what was then the middle of nowhere. But Louis carried the game further. He would not be a king like his father or earlier ancestors. He would not wear a crown or carry a scepter or sit on a throne. He would establish a new kind of imposing authority with symbols and rituals of its own. Louis made his ancestors' rituals into laughable relics of the past. Follow his example. Never let yourself be seen as following your predecessor's path. If you do, you will never surpass him. You must physically demonstrate your difference by establishing a style and symbolism that sets you apart. You have to be huge. In modern politics, you have to be huge. You have to be completely different. You have to show the world who hates and abhors the establishment that you are not the establishment, that you are better, that you are the bestest better that is ever bested in betterness. You must show them that you are very different from what came before you. I use it as a reference, but it strikes true. Even though there is nothing that can be declared youthful about Donald Trump other than he seems to be younger than Joe Biden. He represents a lot of youthful ideas in his rhetoric of like, let's save the country for the. He's not saving the country for himself. He's fucking almost 80. He's saving the country for his children, his children's children, and all the Jews that will marry into his family. Don't get me started on that though. Like, that's not the time for that. The Roman Emperor Augustus, successor to Julius Caesar, understood this thoroughly. Caesar had been a great general, a theatrical figure whose spectacles kept the Romans entertained, an international emissary seduced by the charms of Cleopatra, a larger than life figure. So Augustus, despite his own theatrical tendencies, competed with Caesar not by trying to outdo him, but by differentiating himself from him. He based his power on a return to Roman simplicity, an austerity of both style and substance. Against the memory of Caesar's sweeping presence, Augustus posed a quiet and manly dignity. So Caesar was a big showboat, a man of theater, a, a performance piece. And Augustus, by contrast, was simple, personified, manly stoicism. Very traditional in his regard versus the more flamboyant Caesar. The problem with the overbearing predecessor is that he fills the vistas before you with symbols of the past. You have no room to create your own name. To deal with this situation, you need to hunt out the vacuums. Those areas in culture that have been left vacant and in which you can become the first and principal figure to shine. When Pericles of Athens was about to launch a career as a statesman, he looked for the one thing that was missing in Athenian politics. I mean, if you look at the people who are rising in popularity and cultural relevancy in current politics, they have figured this out as well. They are learning that the thing that is missing from politics is the concept of like liberty and not relying on the government to solve all the problems. A little personal responsibility. This is actually gaining a lot of power because this is missing from current political climate. Most of the great politicians of his time had allied themselves with the aristocracy. Sound familiar? Indeed, Pericles himself had an aristocratic tendencies. Yet he decided to throw in his hat with the city's democratic elements. The choice had nothing to do with his personal beliefs, but it launched him on a brilliant career. Out of necessity, he became a man of the people. Instead of competing in an arena filled with great leaders, both past and present, he would make a name for himself where no shadows could obscure his presence. Aha, is Vivek Ramaswamy a modern day Pericles? You tell me. Feel free to leave that one in the comment section below for all of you in the replay gang who happen to know candidate Ramaswamy. When the painter Diego de Velázquez began his career, he knew he could not compete in refinement and technique with the great Renaissance painters who had come before him. Instead, he chose to work in a style that, by the standards of the time, seemed coarse and rough in a way that had never been seen before. And in this style, he excelled. There were members of the Spanish court who wanted to demonstrate their own break with the past. The newness of Velázquez's style thrilled them. Most people are afraid to break so boldly with tradition, but they secretly admire those who can break up the old forms and reinvigorate the culture. This is why there is so much power to be gained from entering vacuums and voids. And you will notice the people that seek power specifically do hunt out these vacuums and voids and position themselves to rise within them. There is a kind of stubborn stupidity that recurs throughout history and is a strong impediment to power. The superstitious belief that if the person before you succeeded by doing A, B, and C, you can recreate their success by doing the same thing. This cookie cutter approach will seduce the uncreative, for it is easy and appeals to their timidity and their laziness. But circumstances never repeat themselves exactly. And so, because circumstances are ever changing, the dynamics of power are always in flux, you too must adapt your approach to the current cultural relevance of the time. When General Douglas MacArthur assumed command of American forces in the Philippines during World War II, an assistant handed him a book containing the various precedents established by the commanders before him. Throw that book in the trash, Doug. The methods that had been successful for them. MacArthur asked the assistant how many copies there were of this book. 6, the assistant answered. Well, the general replied, you get all those 6 copies together and burn them. Good man. Every one of them. I'll not be bound by precedents. Anytime a problem comes up, I'll make the decision at once, immediately. Adopt this ruthless strategy towards the past. Burn all the books and train yourself to react to circumstances as they happen. You don't need to recreate the wheel. But like Mark Manson said, stop trying. Just be yourself. You'll never be good at being what you think someone else is. And you'll never be good at being what someone else believes you to be. You just have to be the thing that you are. Well said, Mark Manson. And thank you for that, Div. Appreciate it. Don't burn all the books, though, y'all. I'm just going to say this. Do not burn all the books. Do not completely disregard the past. There is wisdom to be found in the successes and failings of your predecessors. Do not completely disregard it. But at the same time, understand your circumstances are not their circumstances and be able to balance the wisdom you have from those who came before you with the adaptability and cunning to manipulate it to serve your ends in the here and now. Thus would be the most efficient use of all that came before you. Not to try to imitate, but to draw upon it as a point of reference. Afternoon, squabs. Good to see you. I haven't checked in on the Rumble side in a while. Shout out to the 19 on Rumble and the giant festival of beeps, boops, and emojis that are going on over there. Y'all are too much. Great adequate alcohol. I didn't see you pop in because I was, completely distracted by coffee intermissions and other things. But good to see great liquor over on the Rumble side. Shout out to the 19 over there and the 8 of you that are watching on the YouTube. Rumble steadily outshining. You may believe that you have separated yourself from the predecessor or father figure, but as you grow older, you must be eternally vigilant lest you become the father you had rebelled against. As a young man, Mao Zedong disliked his father and, in the struggle against him, found his own identity and a new set of values. But as he aged, his father's ways crept back in. Mao's father had valued manual work over intellect. Mao had scoffed this as a young man, but as he grew older, he unconsciously returned to his father's views and echoed such outdated ideas by forcing a whole generation of Chinese intellectuals into manual labor. A nightmarish mistake that cost his regime dearly. Ah, the wonderful logic of the communist. Remember, you are your own father. Well, no, no, that this must be a metaphor. Do not let yourself spend years creating yourself only to let your guard down and allow the ghost of the past, father, habit, history to sneak back in. Finally, as noted in the story of Louis the 15th, Plenitude and prosperity tend to make us lazy and inactive because who worries about struggling when there's nothing to struggle for? Really, I mean, it's common sense. When our power is secure, we have no need to act. It's common sense. This is a serious danger, especially for those who achieve success and power at an early age. Like, I don't know, the United States of America. Though we may be almost 250 something years old, in the realm of like great empires and nations, we're a baby empire and we achieved extreme success very early on. And we have let it go to our heads and we have gotten lazy because we have great wealth and power as a nation. All of these things are true. We are our own worst enemies. The playwright Tennessee Williams, for instance, found himself skyrocketed from obscurity to fame by the success of the Glass Menagerie. The sort of life which I had previous to this popular success, he later wrote, was one that required endurance, a life of clawing and scratching. But it was a good life because it was the sort of life for which the human organism is created. I was not aware of how much vital energy had gone into this struggle until the struggle was removed. This was security at last. I sat down and looked about me and was suddenly very depressed. Williams had a nervous breakdown, which may in fact have been necessary for him. Pushed to the psychological edge, he could start writing with the old vitality again. And he produced A Streetcar Named Desire. Fyodor Dostoevsky, similarly, when he wrote a successful novel, would feel that the financial security he had gained made the act of creation unnecessary. He would take his entire savings to the casino and would not leave until he had gambled away his last penny, every single bit of it. Once reduced to poverty, he could write again. So he wrote out of necessity. And almost all the great genius of our time was born of necessity. Almost all of it. Like if you look at all the great things, great things are not done unless great things are needed to be done. It is not necessary to go to such extremes, but you must be prepared to return to square one psychologically rather than growing fat and lazy with prosperity. Pablo Picasso could deal with success, but only by constantly changing the style of his painting, often breaking completely with what had made him successful before. It's like, oh, yes, I've met. This is the way I interpreted Picasso's work. I figured out how to do this thing adequately enough. Let me go work on this thing now. Okay, I'm kind of good at this. Like, I don't actually consider any of Picasso's works like true masterworks, but the fact that he just like throughout his life went style to style to style to style and became competent in them and then moved on, like that's mastery of the art of art versus the art of style. How often our early triumphs turn us into a kind of caricature of ourselves. Powerful people recognize these traps. Like Alexander the Great, they struggle constantly to recreate themselves. The father must not be allowed to return. He must be slain at every step of the way. And the father represents and symbolizes like everything that came before you. America, populated by babies. Unfortunately, we're only actually babies in like our minds because our population be aging. See, I don't know the actual works of the great playwright Tennessee Williams. I am uncultured swine, squab. Image. The father. He casts a giant shadow over his children, keeping them in thrall long after he is gone by tying them to the past, squashing their youthful spirit, and forcing them down the same tired path he followed themselves or himself. His tricks are many. At every crossroad you must slay the father and step out of his shadow. Authority. Beware of stepping into a great man's shoes. You will have to accomplish twice as much to surpass him. Those who follow are taken for imitators. No matter how much they sweat, they will never shed that burden. Those who follow are taken for imitators. No matter how much they sweat, they will never shed that burden. So if you do the exact same thing that the person before you did, even if you do it notably better, you're still just an imitator of that guy who came before you. Your shit ain't original. I don't care how good you are at it. Like, you literally just stole his whole show, ripped off your teacher, and added an afro. If y'all get that reference, like, bonus points to you. It is an uncommon skill to find a new path for excellence, a modern route to celebrity. There are many roads to singularity, not all of them well traveled. The newest ones can be arduous, but they are often shortcuts to greatness. To quote the the Star Trek, to boldly go. I almost said the Star Wars. No, it's the Star Trek. To boldly go where no man has ever gone before is a very distinct path to greatness because, well, nobody knew where you were going. You didn't even know where you were going. Nobody had ever gone there. That is your legacy, is to be the first. I think this is why Elon Musk is so obsessed with making the whole world electric, uh, putting brain chips in everybody's head, and then turning us into his slaves so we can go colonize Mars. His his brain chip slavery program is all to send us to Mars so he can say he was the first one to colonize Mars. The Elon. No shit. I just theorized what I think he's up to. And if you look at all the things he's doing, like he's trying to create he's trying to create like a specific fleet of vehicles that don't require fossil fuels because on Mars they don't have oil. But you can still make nuclear power if you can bring uranium to Mars. Yeah, I mean, he might be the Antichrist. We still haven't ruled Mr. Beast or Taylor Swift out of being the Antichrist, though. And Barack Obama still exists, too. So, like, is it written that the Antichrist have to be one person? Could the Antichrist be an idea that permeates through multiple faces? Could the beast have more than one head? I don't know. We're gonna have to get into a like. We're gonna have to make this a less power talk and a more scriptural. The we could we could do a show about this. What if they all the Antichrist? What if every single one of them is the Antichrist? Interesting thoughts for later. Reversal. The shadow of a great predecessor could be used to advantage if it is chosen as a trick. A tactic that can be discarded once it has brought you power. Napoleon III used the name and legend of his illustrious granduncle Napoleon Bonaparte to help him become first president and then emperor of France. Once on the throne, however, he did not stay tied to the past. He quickly showed how different his reign would be and was careful to keep the public from expecting him to attain the heights that Bonaparte had attained. The past often has elements worth appropriating. This is why I said don't burn all the books. Because you want to be able to appreciate and appropriate the parts of the past. I'm pretty sure that Marilyn Manson had an entire album titled Antichrist Superstar. Yeah, I mean, there's a reason that I suspect Mr. Beast and Kanye and Barack Obama and probably Elon. Yeah, burn the Twilight books. If you're gonna burn some books, burn all Stephanie Meyer's Twilight series books, all of them. Go throughout the world, gather all the Twilight books and DVDs, burn them all, and then delete all the digital copies. And let's just pretend that Twilight never existed because sparkly vampires are shit. Real vampires do not sparkle. Calm down, Div. Relax. I'm joking. I'm joking. I don't believe in burning books. When they said burn all the books, I was like, wait, no? That sounds like a way to destroy. I mean, yes, you're supposed to be destroying the past in this idea, but that's a very dangerous concept to do. The past often has elements worth appropriating, qualities that would be foolish to reject out of a need to distinguish yourself. Even Alexander the Great recognized and was influenced by his father's skill in organizing an army. Because if he wasn't, he wouldn't have been able to expand his empire long ways. Uh, I own the books. I've seen pieces of the movies. I know for a fact that the books are not nearly as cringe and vomit inducing as the movies were. I know that much, Div. But I hate the way that books are interpreted in movies almost always. Very rarely have I seen a movie adaptation and been like, good job. Usually it's what the fuck. Making a display of doing things differently from your predecessors can make you seem childish and, in fact, out of control, unless your actions have a logic of their own. So, unless you can make a case for fuck LOL depends on the book if is shit is shit. Duh. What's up with Rumble? Don't tell me what to do, cat. You're not the boss of me. You're not my dad, and if you were, I'd destroy you, as this chapter indicates I should. So you better check your power. Joseph II, son of the Austrian Empress Maria Theresa, made a show of doing the exact opposite of his mother. Well, by being a man, you've started off strong. Like, being a man is definitely the opposite of your mom, who is a woman. Dressing like an ordinary citizen, staying in inns instead of palaces, appearing as the people's emperor. Maria Theresa, on the other hand, had been regal and aristocratic. The problem was that she had also been beloved, an empress who ruled wisely after years of learning the hard way. Ah, so women can learn. Hold on, I'm writing this down. They just have to learn through years of learning the hard way. If you have the kind of intelligence and instinct that will point you in the right direction, playing the rebel will not be dangerous. But if you are mediocre, as Joseph Jr. was in comparison to his mommy, you are better off learning from your predecessor's knowledge and experience, which are based on something real. So yeah, this playing the bold power move only works if you actually have power to institute it. Otherwise, you just look ridiculous. Finally, it is often wise to keep an eye on the young, your future rivals in power. Yeah, you can turn it off now, Cat Ninja. Just as you try to rid yourself of your father, they will soon play the same trick on you, denigrating everything you have accomplished. Anybody ever had a parent that they could just never, ever achieve enough to satisfy, that they could just never please? This is a common thing. Just as you rise by rebelling against the past, keep an eye on those rising from below and never give them the chance to do the same to you. So it is good to embrace and be aware of what the next generation is up to because you're the past they're trying to overthrow. We need to get back to overthrowing the past. We'll start with the boomers. Let's start with the boomers. The great Baroque artist and architect Pietro Bernini was a master at sniffing out younger potential rivals and keeping them in his shadow. One day, a young stonemason named Francesco Borromini showed Bernini his architectural sketches. Recognizing his talent immediately, Bernini instantly hired Borromini as his assistant, which delighted the young man, but was actually only a tactic to keep him close at hand, where he could keep a fucking eye on him. So that he could play psychological games on him and create in him a kind of inferiority complex. Not only where he could keep an eye on you, but where he can manipulate you into being exactly what he wants you to be. And indeed, despite Borromini's brilliance, Bernini has the greater fame. His strategy with Borromini he made a lifelong practice. Fearing that the great sculptor Alessandro Algardi, for example, would eclipse him in fame, he arranged it so that Algardi could only find work as his assistant, and any assistant who rebelled against Bernini and tried to strike out on his own would find his career sabotaged and ruined. Did you know that Bernini is a fraud, Charlemagne? Did you know that he's a scammer and a con man? Like, you might very well be saying today that Algardi or Borromini was your favorite or one of your favorites if Bernini hadn't been such a manipulative cunt, kind of like our man Edison was to our boy Tesla. Kind of a cunt. Wow. That was Law 41, y'all. 3 hours. I know I did a lot of talking on this one. I didn't expect to do this much talking on this one, but it was a great conversation and a great discussion. That's why I love these early Friday streams. The 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 group is a little different. The dynamics are a little bit different. Seems like everybody's still like having fun playing with emojis and cracking jokes over on Rumble. Shout out to the 28 of y'all over there. Like, big ups to the Rumble gang. And thank everybody. I definitely want to thank everybody for participating. Everybody who's on the replay gang, go ahead and leave it in the comment section below, please. I know I ask you this every time. Rumble Children's and they and their gay stickers. Tell them we're doing adult things. I mean, I'd tell them they don't listen anyway. That kids will be kids. What are you gonna do, right? Thank you all though for joining me. I do. I love every one of you. I appreciate all of your inputs. You guys make it easier to do this. You make it more fun. On Monday, y'all, we coming back. Law 42 is strike the shepherd and the sheep will scatter. This one seems like one that's pretty straightforward and pretty obvious, but who knows? There may be some surprising gems in our future. So hopefully everyone will be there to enjoy that. And I will see all of y'all on Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, which is God's time, for the 42nd Law. We is now getting down to the end. And I think these last few laws is going to be very, very exciting for my audience. I know I'm excited for them, although it does like break my heart a little bit. Eastern, like that? No, not like the Middle Eastern time zone, like the Eastern United States time zone. That's Eastern Standard Time for those of y'all who don't know. 8 p.m. Dig. When's your next show? I'm pretty sure you meant Div. Div's next show Monday at noon Eastern Standard Time, which is 9 a.m. over in the weirdo time zone. 42, Bill Clinton. I mean, I don't know. Maybe we may get into old Slick Willie at some point. But yes, thank you all for joining me. See you back here Monday. If not, I'll see you somewhere in the wastelands throughout the internet. Uh, Seatbelts and sidearms, y'all. It is getting crazy out there. So saith Hideous, stay strapped or get clapped. Until Monday, I hope all of you have a wonderful weekend, and I will catch you back here then. Darth Hideous, out.